Christmas is supposed to be a time for warmth and family, but that day, my son looked me in the eyes and said words I'll never forget. He closed the door right in my face, and his wife stood behind him smiling as if it were some kind of performance. That single word he used hung in the cold December air like a slap, but I didn't argue. I didn't shed a tear. I simply turned around, walked to my car, and drove home. Somewhere along that drive, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger. It was a sharp, sudden clarity, the kind that feels like glass breaking. That night, sitting at my computer, I stopped every financial support I'd been giving them for years. The shared mortgage payment, gone. The car insurance, canceled. Every automatic transfer that had been keeping their perfect life afloat. Deleted. 5 minutes. That's all it took to dismantle the comfort they had taken for granted. And now he's panicking. Let me explain how we got here, how a mother, doing everything out of love, ended up being pushed aside, and how that same mother finally decided she'd had enough. It began 5 years earlier. Jamal had just married Tiffany, beautiful, ambitious, charming in public, and noticeably different once the attention faded. They visited my small apartment one spring afternoon. I thought they were coming to share good news or include me in their plans. Instead, it was a request wrapped in polite smiles. "Mama, we need your help," Jamal said. They wanted a house, a 2-story home with a yard, but needed a co-signer. "It's just paperwork," he insisted. "You won't have to pay anything." Tiffany placed her manicured hand on mine and spoke sweetly about stability and future grandkids. That phrase opened my heart immediately. I imagined holidays together, Sunday breakfasts, a warm family home. So I signed without reading every word because I trusted my son, because love doesn't question intentions. 6 months later, they returned. This time for help with a $20,000 SUV. "We just need $8,000 up front. We'll pay you back in 6 months, he promised. I used my savings, the money I had earned cleaning houses and ironing clothes, working long hours even when my body ached, and I gave it with a smile. That's what mothers do. 6 months passed, then a year, then longer. More requests followed, water heater repairs, dental bills, school clothes, and every time I hesitated, Jamal would say, "Don't you want the best for your grandkids?" Guilt became their favorite tool, and I let it work on me. But it wasn't just the money. It was the slow fading of my place in their lives. Calls only came with requests. Birthdays passed without invitations. Family gatherings didn't include me because I didn't fit the vibe. Tiffany once glanced at my old gray dress, the same one I wore to Jamal's wedding, and whispered something to her friend about thrift store clothing. I stayed quiet. I kept giving. I kept hoping. But over time, I became nothing more than a backup plan, the free babysitter, the emergency funds, the person behind the scenes of their perfect social media life. And still, like a fool in love with her own family, I kept saying yes, until that December afternoon. I arrived at their beautifully decorated house carrying gifts I could barely afford, presents for the children, perfume for Tiffany, a silk tie for Jamal. I had spent over $1,000, because Christmas to me was about showing love. When Jamal opened the door, he didn't greet me. He didn't smile. He looked at me as if I had no place there at all. Behind him, the warm glow of lights and the smell of a holiday feast filled the house. Laughter drifted through the rooms, laughter I wasn't part of. And then Tiffany appeared behind him. Tiffany stood there in a deep wine-colored dress, elegant, expensive, the kind of outfit I suspected had been paid for with the money I'd sent last month for the kids' piano lessons. She let her gaze travel from my coat to my old shoes and finally to the bag of gifts I held with such excitement. And then she smiled, polite, distant, the kind of smile people use right before delivering uncomfortable news. "Merry Christmas, honey," I told Jamal softly. "I brought presents for everyone. I thought we could share dinner tonight." He didn't respond at first. His silence said more than any words could, the kind of silence shaped by years of distance, disappointment, and quiet resentment. "Mama," he finally said, his voice cool, almost rehearsed. I don't think it's a good idea for you to come in tonight. The sentence hit with the force of something invisible, but heavy. Excuse me? I whispered. Tiffany stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder as if claiming territory. Celeste, she began. My name. Not Mama, not family, just Celeste, as though I were a stranger who'd arrived at the wrong address. We're hosting important people from Jamal's office tonight, his supervisor, some clients. It's more of a business event, you understand? It's not really a family evening. I waited for Jamal to correct her, to say I was welcome, that I mattered, that I wasn't someone who needed an appointment to see her own child. But he simply looked away. And the kids? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. At least let me give them their presents. Tiffany sighed, the way someone sighs when dealing with a minor inconvenience. They're occupied, and honestly, they already have plenty. They don't need more toys. She took the bag from my hands, peeked inside, and her expression shifted, soft at first, then clearly critical. These are very simple, Celeste. We try to get high-quality items for them. You know, things that last. Simple. The word landed like a sharp needle. Then Jamal said the sentence that tore the last string holding my heart together. Mama, look, it's nothing personal, but tonight is important to us. We can't create the wrong impression. I replayed the word he had used earlier that day, the one echoing between us like a cold shadow, and I felt something inside me turn numb. You know how it is, he continued. Your place is small. You work hard, but things are different for you. The people here tonight expect certain standards. Tiffany nodded. It's just for tonight, Celeste. We don't want you to feel out of place. It wouldn't be comfortable for you. Out of place. In the home I helped them secure. Surrounded by holiday decorations I probably paid for without realizing it. I looked into my son's eyes, searching for the little boy who once hugged me with his whole heart. But that boy wasn't there. The door began to close, slowly, gently, like a curtain falling at the end of a play. Maybe it's better if you spend Christmas at your place, Tiffany said softly, given your situation. And then the door clicked shut. I stood there in the snow, the cold settling into my bones. Behind the door, laughter floated into the night. Music played. Life went on, just not with me in it. I walked back to my car, each step heavier than the last. Inside, I placed the gifts on the passenger seat and sat in silence, trying to breathe through the weight in my chest. I drove home through streets glowing with holiday lights, families strolling together, children laughing, couples holding hands. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere, everyone except me. Back in my quiet apartment, I removed my coat, poured a cup of tea, and sat by the window. And then the tears came, slow, hot, relentless. I cried for the daughter I once was, for the mother I tried to be, for the grandmother I was never allowed to become. But most of all, I cried for the woman who had given everything believing that love alone was enough. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay awake, tracing every memory, every moment, every warning sign I had ignored. And with each recollection, clarity grew, not loud or dramatic, but steady, like dawn creeping over the horizon. I remembered the first emergency request right after the wedding, the day he stopped calling me Mama and started using my name, the subtle remarks Tiffany made about my clothes and my hair, disguised as kindness but sharp underneath, missed birthdays, unreturned calls, promises that dissolved the second I turned away, and the money, always the money. The mortgage payments I covered in secret, the monthly transfers, the repairs, the lessons, the insurance, the quiet help they pretended not to notice. That night, the truth settled over me with painful clarity. I wasn't his mother anymore. I was his funding, a resource, something to use until empty, then quietly set aside. That realization didn't arrive with fireworks or anger. It came quietly, like a cold, honest whisper. I stood up from the chair, walked to my desk, and opened my laptop. Its screen lit up my small apartment like a single spotlight in a dark theater. Inside my banking app was the full record of everything I had been pouring into their lives. Month after month, year after year, automatic transfer to Jamal Jakes, $600 every month for 5 years, $36,000 gone without a trace. Shared mortgage payment, $450 monthly because I was the cosigner who always stepped in when they forgot. Car insurance, $70. Family dental plan, $80. Gym membership that Tiffany swore she needed. Streaming services, repairs, small charges that added up like slow, steady erosion. A financial timeline of how I had slowly disappeared inside their needs. I hovered my cursor over the cancel button and took a long breath. There was no bitterness, no fury, just calm. The kind of calm that only comes when the wound finally stops bleeding. Click. Are you sure you want to cancel this automatic transfer? Yes. Cancel. Another click. And another. And another. Each one sounded like a small door shutting, except this time I wasn't the one being shut out. I was closing the door from my side, protecting my space, choosing my peace. Automatic transfer? Canceled. Mortgage payment? Canceled. Auto insurance? Canceled. Dental plan? Canceled. Gym membership? Canceled. One by one, like a surgeon carefully removing what should have never been there in the first place. It took exactly 5 minutes to undo 5 years of being drained. When the last cancellation was done, I closed the laptop and let the silence of my apartment wrap around me. Outside, the city slept under falling snow. For the first time in years, I felt lighter, as if someone had lifted stones from my chest, as if I had been underwater this whole time and had finally broken the surface. Not a single moment of regret touched me. I made another cup of tea, sat by the window and waited, not for their call, not for apologies or explanations. I waited for the sunrise because I knew I would not be the same woman when morning came. Christmas passed quietly. I ate simple soup, watched an old movie, and went to bed early. I slept better than I had in months because there were no expectations left to suffocate me, only quiet. And I discovered that quiet can be one of the most beautiful things in the world. The next days moved gently. New Year's arrived. I toasted with a small glass of juice and even laughed at how different my life suddenly felt. I made myself a promise. This year wouldn't be about giving everything away. This year would be about living. January brought cold winds, and with them came the bills. The very bills I had been shielding them from for years. Now they would land directly in their mailbox. The mortgage. The $300 extra I had silently been covering. The bank doesn't accept excuses. The bank only sees numbers. The car insurance gone. No insurance means no legal driving, no convenient trips, no polished appearances. Then, the smaller luxuries I had funded without acknowledgement, the subscriptions, the gym, the little comforts, gone. All of them. Meanwhile, I went to the market and bought groceries just for myself. I paid my own bills, only mine. I bought a book I had wanted for years, one I could never justify buying before. I curled up on my small couch with it reading page after page with no interruptions, no guilt, no sudden calls asking for favors, just peace. Simple, quiet, mine. But peaceful days rarely last forever. Reality always knocks eventually. 2 weeks after I canceled everything, on a cold Tuesday morning, my phone lit up. Jamal. I watched it vibrate. I didn't answer. It rang again and again. I let it ring. Every ringtone felt like justice finally returning to its proper place. Then the messages came, one after another, a frantic stream. Mama, where are you? Call me back. It's urgent. We need to talk. It's important. But I heard the truth beneath the words. It wasn't worry for me. It was worry for their comfort, for the sudden shift in their perfect world. I didn't reply. I deleted the messages, one after another, without reading them fully. Because their problems were no longer my responsibilities. Not anymore. Not ever again. 2 days later, there was a loud knock at my door. It was evening. I was reading quietly, wrapped in the calm I had finally found. Then the doorbell rang again, insistent, urgent. I looked through the peephole. Jamal stood there. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, hair unkempt, shoulders tense. He looked worried, almost vulnerable. Almost. "Mama, I know you're in there. Please, I need to talk to you." His voice carried through the door. "I need your help. It's an emergency." That word again, the one he had used for years to open my wallet, but this time it had no power. I remained silent behind the door, present but untouchable. "Mama, please," he said. "The bank called. They said the mortgage is late. If I don't pay this week, they'll start the foreclosure process. I don't get it, you always covered your part." Your part. As if that house belonged to me. As if I ever lived there. As if it had been anything but a door that closed in my face. "I need $8,000 this week," he continued, panic rising. "Do you hear me? We could lose the house." His voice broke into something raw, but I stayed quiet. Every word fell flat against the door like meaningless echoes. "Tiffany and the kids have nowhere to go. Is that what you want? For your grandkids to lose their home?" There it was, the final attempt. Using the children as a shield. But I remembered how they didn't let me see them at Christmas, how Tiffany dismissed the toys I bought, how my place in their lives existed only when it was convenient. "Mama, open the door!" His tone shifted, no longer pleading, but demanding, as if he still believed he had authority over me. He hit the door with his fist. "I know you're in there. Open it now." I didn't. Instead, I turned off the lights, walked to my room, closed the door, lay on my bed, and listened to the noise gradually fade. Eventually, he left, and I slept deeply, without fear, without dreams, without weight. The following days turned into a strange concert of urgent calls, messages, and long emails, some from Jamal, some from Tiffany. "Celeste, we need to talk like adults. This is unreasonable. Jamal told me you two had a misunderstanding. You can't punish the whole family." A misunderstanding, as if being insulted, dismissed, and shut out of their home was some miscommunication. Then came Tiffany's softer tone. "The kids miss you. They ask about you." A sentence crafted for effect. Because if they truly missed me, I would not have been left outside in the snow that night. Another message. "Jamal was stressed. He didn't mean what he said. Please come over. Let's fix this." Fix what? Something I didn't break? Something I had carried alone for years? I didn't answer any of them. I had learned something powerful. Silence is its own kind of statement. Saying nothing can be the strongest refusal, and stepping out of someone's life can be the purest form of liberation. So I continued living in my small, peaceful world, and while they wrestled with their growing chaos, I bloomed quietly like a plant that finally feels sunlight after years in shadows. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of my silence. 3 weeks of their unraveling. Because I knew the truth, their world had been held together by me. And without me, the cracks widened fast. One February afternoon, as I was sipping coffee in my little kitchen, I heard loud voices outside. Familiar ones, angry ones. I glanced out the window. Jamal and Tiffany stood on the street, arguing openly, their gestures sharp, their faces strained. Tiffany's voice rose. "Your mother is ruining everything, Jamal. You need to do something. Talk to her, beg her. I don't care, we need that money." "You think I haven't tried?" Jamal snapped back. "She won't answer. She won't open the door. It's like she disappeared." "Well, then go to her job. Wait outside if you have to. Do something." Her voice cracked, not from sadness but from frustration. "I'm not going back to living in a tiny apartment, not after everything we've built." Everything they'd built. Built with what? Their effort? Or my sacrifices? They looked at each other with a mixture of anger and fear, the kind that surfaces when people realize their foundation was never their own. Tiffany wiped her smeared makeup with the back of her hand. "The bank gave us until Friday," she said. "If we don't pay $8,000, they'll start foreclosure. Jamal, what are we going to do?" "My salary can't cover it," he admitted. "And you spent the entire year-end bonus on that trip." "It was for our anniversary, to keep our relationship healthy." Well, none of that matters if we don't have a place to live. Their voices echoed up the street like a broken duet. Then Tiffany said the sentence that showed exactly how they saw me. Then ask your mother again. Do whatever you have to, because I am not going back to living small. Not after everything we've built. That was the last thing I heard before they drove away in the car that no longer had insurance, the car they technically weren't even supposed to be driving. I went back to my coffee. It had gone cold, but I drank it anyway because even cold coffee tasted like victory. That evening, an email arrived from Tiffany. Long, emotional, carefully worded, but beneath the polished sentences, I could feel the familiar tone, the tone that wanted something. Dear Celeste, I know things have not been perfect. I admit we may not have shown enough appreciation, but we are family, and family forgives. The children ask about you every day. They cry. They want their grandmother. We need you. Not just financially, we need your presence. Please come home. Let's talk. Let's fix this. With love, Tiffany. I read each line slowly, letting every phrase reveal what it truly meant. And the message underneath was simple. We need your money. Everything else was decoration, an emotional ribbon tied around a request. I deleted the email without a second thought. Friday came, the bank's deadline. I didn't do anything dramatic. I went to the market, bought fresh vegetables, warm bread, and a small bouquet of flowers for my kitchen table. Simple joys, joys that were finally mine. As I walked home, my phone rang. Unknown number. For the first time in weeks, I answered. Celeste Jakes? A formal voice asked. Yes. This is Miss Davis from Metropolitan Bank. I'm calling about the property at 422 Maple Drive. You are registered as co-signer on the mortgage. My heart thudded once, then steadied. Yes, I know. I'm calling to inform you that the primary account holders have missed this month's payment. Under the agreement, you are responsible for covering the balance. The amount due is $4,300. Would you like to make the payment today? I paused. This was the crossroads, the final moment where I could step back into the role I'd played all my life, the rescuer, or choose to be something new. Free. No, I said, calm, firm, steady. I will not be making that payment. A long silence followed. I must inform you, she continued, that this will affect your credit score. Foreclosure procedures will begin next week. I understand, I said. I accept the consequences. Are you certain? This is a significant decision. I'm completely sure. Very well. We will send you the documents. She hung up. I stood there in the street, holding my grocery bags, holding my flowers, and holding my freedom. I walked home smiling because I had finally done something I never believed I had the courage to do. I said no. And nothing collapsed. The sky didn't fall. The world didn't end. I simply walked home. That night, I cooked myself a real dinner, slowly, with attention, with care. I lit a candle, put on soft music, served myself on my best plate, and ate alone. But for the first time in decades, I didn't feel alone. I felt whole. The next morning, Saturday, there was an unexpected knock at the door. I opened it without thinking. A mistake. It was Jamal. Not the confident man from before, but a man unraveling, red eyes, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, worn down by life, or maybe by reality finally catching up. Mama, he whispered, please, I need to talk to you. I tried to close the door, but he gently placed his foot inside, not forcefully, not aggressively, but desperately. Please, just 5 minutes, please. Something in his voice, something faint but familiar, made me pause. So I let him in. He stepped into my small apartment like it was foreign land, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. Maybe he was. He sat on my couch, bent forward and covered his face with his hands. Then he cried, not dramatic tears, not manipulative ones, real ones. We lost everything, he said between sobs. The house, the car, everything. He wiped his face, trying to breathe. Tiffany left. She took the kids. She says I can't provide. She says this is all my fault. He looked at me with eyes full of regret and fear. Mama, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the things I said. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I'm sorry for everything. But please, I need help. I need money for an apartment so I can get my family back. Please, I'm begging you. I sat across from him, calm, not with anger, but with a clarity I had earned. How much are you asking for? I said quietly. 10,000, maybe 15. For the deposit, the first month, some furniture, something to show Tiffany I can fix this. 15,000. Nearly half of what I had left, after years of giving up everything for them. No, I said, simple, direct, unshakable. He blinked rapidly, as if he didn't understand. What? I'm not giving you money, Jamal. His confusion quickly turned to disbelief. How can you say that? I'm your son, your only son. Exactly, I replied. You are my son, not my purpose, not my provider, and not my reason to empty my future. But I need you. And I needed you too, I said softly. I needed you on Christmas. I needed you when I stood at your door with gifts and hope, but you told me I wasn't worthy. You shut the door in my face. That was a mistake, he said quickly. I was upset. I was under pressure. I didn't think it was a mistake, I said. I held on to that word, mistake, the way one holds on to something fragile. A mistake that had cost me years of dignity, a mistake that revealed exactly what I was to him. A wallet with a heartbeat. Mama, please, he begged. You're not going to leave me out here. You left me out there first, I replied softly. Except my street wasn't physical, it was emotional, and it hurt much more. He stood up, trembling, anger flickering in his eyes. You're selfish, a bitter old woman. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said. But if I regret something, at least it will be my regret, not yours. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I sat there, feeling the echo of his words drift through the room. Selfish, bitter. Maybe he was right. But if selfish meant choosing myself for the first time in decades, then selfishness wasn't a vice. And if bitter meant refusing to be used again, then I would accept that title too. Because I had finally learned something important. Real love fills you. It doesn't drain you. What I had with my son wasn't love. It was an endless exchange. And exchanges end when one side stops giving. I had stopped giving. The days that followed were strange. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't lie awake second-guessing myself. I didn't feel like a cruel person, because I had finally understood something fundamental. Saying no didn't make me a bad mother. It made me a person with limits. February slipped into March. The snow melted into gray slush. Spring hovered but hadn't fully arrived. I kept my routine, work, groceries, reading, quiet moments. But something inside me shifted. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who seemed lighter, stronger, as if she had finally removed a heavy costume she'd worn for decades. The costume of the perfect mother, the problem solver, the one who always said yes. Now I was just Celeste. No roles, no titles I hadn't chosen. One afternoon, while cleaning the home of Mrs. Holloway, my oldest client, she invited me for tea. We sat in her sunny kitchen. She was in her 80s, a widow with 3 adult children who visited every Sunday. You look different, Celeste, she said kindly. Lighter, like you put down something heavy. I smiled faintly. Something like that. Family things. She nodded with the wisdom that comes only with age. When my kids were young, she said, I gave everything too. My time, my energy, my money. I believed that was love. But one day my husband told me something I never forgot. The love that empties you isn't love. It's sacrifice. And sacrifice only works when it goes both ways. Her words struck me like truth, finally finding its landing place. And what did you do? I asked. I learned to say no, she answered. I learned that being a good mother doesn't mean becoming a martyr. And you know what? My children respected me more once I finally had something they couldn't take, my dignity. I drank my tea in silence, feeling something inside me settle. "You did the right thing, Celeste," she added softly. "Whatever you did, it was right." I left her house carrying something rare. Validation. Not from my son, not from Tiffany, but from someone who had walked a similar road and survived it. That night, I received a message, but not from Jamal. It was from Tiffany. "Celeste, I need to talk to you. It's about the children. It's urgent. Please respond." The children. Always the children. The perfect shield, the classic leverage. But this time, curiosity made me answer. "What happened?" Her reply came quickly. "The kids are struggling. They don't understand why we lost the house or why Jamal isn't with us anymore. They ask about you. They say they want to see their grandmother." I read it 3 times, searching every word for sincerity. What I found was the same thing wrapped in softer fabric: manipulation. So I answered, "If the children ask for me, you can give them my address. They are welcome here any time, but you and Jamal are not." A long pause followed. Then, "That is cruel. They are small. They cannot come alone." "Then they don't ask about me as much as you say," I typed. "This conversation is over. You're being unreasonable." "Perhaps," I replied, "but I'm unreasonable with money in my bank account. Can you say the same?" There were no more messages. I blocked her. Because I had learned something else. The children were real, but they were being used as bargaining chips. And I refused to be moved by emotional blackmail disguised as family. If the children truly needed me one day, I would be there. But I would not finance an entire household simply to be tolerated in their orbit. That wasn't love. That was pressure. March continued forward. One afternoon, walking in the park near my apartment, I saw something that made me stop. It was Jamal, sitting alone on a bench, staring into nothing. He looked older, smaller, as if he had aged 10 years in 2 months. For a moment, every maternal instinct I had ever known stirred. A part of me wanted to go to him, ask if he was all right, place a hand on his shoulder. But I stayed where I was, behind a tree, watching him the way a stranger watches a stranger, because that's exactly what he had become. Then I saw something that made my breath catch. A woman approached Jamal. Not Tiffany. Someone older, composed, with elegant gray hair styled perfectly. She sat down beside him. They spoke quietly. Jamal gestured wildly as he explained something, desperation visible in every movement. The woman listened, her expression serious. Then she reached into her purse and handed him an envelope. Jamal opened it. His expression shifted instantly, surprise, relief. And then, for just a heartbeat, something colder. Not gratitude, not hope, calculation. That was when I left. I walked away carrying more clarity than I expected. My son wasn't learning, wasn't growing, wasn't even trying. He was simply searching for the next Celeste, the next person to fund his life, the next source to drain. That night I couldn't sleep, not from guilt, but from questions. Who was that woman? What was in the envelope? Why did I care at all? I got my answer 2 days later. A knock at my door. I opened it and froze. It was her, the woman from the park. "Celeste Jakes?" she asked politely. "Yes." "My name is Ms. Evelyn. I was your son's neighbor back when he still had a house." I let her in cautiously. She sat down, declined the tea I offered, and spoke plainly. "I need to tell you something your son doesn't want you to know." My stomach tightened. "I've lived next door for years," she continued. "Thin walls, close windows. You see things, you hear things." She hesitated, then said, "Tiffany has a serious shopping addiction. Deliveries came every day. Luxury brands, expensive shoes, purses, clothes she never even wore." My chest tightened. I had known pieces of the truth, but not the whole picture. "That's their business," I said quietly, even though we both knew it touched mine more than anyone else's. "There's more," Ms. Evelyn said. "Your son told me you were helping them financially, money every month, supposedly for the children." I nodded. $600. She shook her head firmly. The children weren't receiving that money. They went to public school. They had normal clothes. They were fine. The money, you went somewhere else. Where? I asked, already fearing the answer. Tiffany has 3 credit cards, she said softly, all maxed out, $40,000 in debt. Jamal only discovered it when the bank declined his refinancing request. I felt winded. She was using the mortgage payments to cover minimum balances, Evelyn said, borrowing from one place to cover another. That's why they lost the house. Not just because you stopped helping, because she was drowning in debt and he let it happen. I closed my eyes. The truth hurt, but it also healed. Why are you telling me this? I whispered. Ms. Evelyn looked at me the way someone looks at a reflection of their past. Because I saw him earlier today, she said. He tried to manipulate me too, asked me for money. Told me you were a cold mother who abandoned them, and I knew that speech because I was in your position 20 years ago. I looked at her carefully, and in that moment I could see the invisible scars she carried. I gave him $1,000, she admitted. Told him it was all I had left. Told him not to come back. But I know he will. People like your son and Tiffany rarely change. They simply search for the next person who will say yes. She stood up, leaving a small card on my table. If you ever need someone to talk to, call me. You're not alone. She left. And with her departure came something else. The full truth. My money had never gone to the children. It had never supported real needs. It had fed an addiction, a lifestyle based on appearances, a world built on illusion, and Jamal had allowed it, joined it, used me to sustain it. That night, I opened a notebook, something I hadn't done since I was a young woman. I wrote everything, the hurt, the shock, the clarity, and at the bottom of the page, surprising even myself, I wrote, I forgive them, not because they earned it, but because I deserve peace. April arrived with gentle rain. It washed the streets clean, leaving everything smelling new. I kept living my quiet life, steady, simple, mine. But something inside me had changed since Ms. Evelyn's visit. Not anger. Something more final. Clarity. Jamal wasn't a victim. He had been part of the system that drained me. Not accidentally, not unknowingly, on purpose. That truth hurt more than any insult ever could. Because it's one thing to be taken advantage of, and another to realize the person doing it always knew they were doing it. One morning, while having coffee, my phone rang, a number I didn't know. For some reason, I answered. Miss Jakes? A formal male voice. Yes, speaking. This is Mr. Carter. I represent Metropolitan Bank in the foreclosure case on the Maple Drive property. You are listed as co-signer. My pulse quickened. Yes, I'm aware. I'm calling because new information has come to light, he said. Information I believe you should know. Could we meet? It's important. What's it regarding? I asked cautiously. I prefer to explain in person. It's delicate. Something in his tone, a seriousness, a weight made me agree. We arranged to meet the next day at a quiet cafe. Neutral. Safe. That night I didn't sleep well, not out of fear, but because I sensed something significant was coming, something that would change everything again. The next day at the cafe, I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered tea, and sat by the window, watching cars move through the rain. Mr. Carter arrived right on time, gray suit, understated tie, leather briefcase. He looked like a man who carried important truths carefully. He sat across from me, waited for the waitress to leave, and then said, I'm going to be direct. During the account review connected to the foreclosure, Mr. Carter began, we found irregularities. My chest tightened. What kind of irregularities? He opened his briefcase, pulled out a folder, and laid several papers neatly on the table. 5 years ago, when you co-signed the mortgage, you also signed several bank authorizations. Do you remember? Only vaguely, I admitted. There were many documents. One of those authorizations allowed your son and daughter-in-law limited access to confirm your income, a routine requirement for the loan. He paused, then added quietly, but they used it for something more. He slid a page toward me and pointed at a set of numbers. For the past 3 years, your son Jamal has been checking your bank activity regularly, sometimes every week. Checking? I whispered. Why? To know exactly how much money you had at any given moment, to calculate how much they could request without leaving you completely without resources, to ensure the maximum extraction. The word landed heavily. Extraction. As if I were a resource, not a person. There's more, he said gently, turning another document. You remember the $8,000 you sent for the car's initial payment? Yes. That money never went to the car. The vehicle had already been purchased. It cost $20,000. They had $18,000 saved from Jamal's work bonus. They only needed $2,000 more, but asked you for $8,000. My throat tightened. Where did the rest go? To various purchases, restaurants, clothing, a weekend at a spa. You unknowingly funded Tiffany's lifestyle. A slow, quiet anger rose inside me, not chaotic, not wild, but precise and sharp like glass. How did you find all this? I asked. He exhaled, and for a moment, he wasn't a lawyer, just a person. I'm representing the bank, but I'm also a father, and what I saw here looked like financial mistreatment. I investigated further because I needed you to know. Why me? He looked down for a moment. My mother went through something similar with my brother. She passed away believing she was a bad parent for saying no. She never learned he had been manipulating her. I wish I had shown her the truth. The silence between us was heavy, full of stories of mothers who gave everything and children who took without limit. There's something else, he said softly. Something important before you decide what to do. He pointed to another form. When your son applied for the mortgage, he had to declare income and family support. He stated that you sent him $600 a month. That strengthened his loan application, allowed the bank to approve a larger mortgage. So they used my generosity to go deeper into debt, I murmured. They built their entire life on the belief that I would keep paying forever. Exactly. And when you stopped, they didn't just lose your help. They lost the money the bank expected them to have. That's why foreclosure moved so quickly. I closed my eyes. It all made sense now. Painfully. Undeniably. What are my options? I asked. Legally, you're responsible for the debt, he said carefully. But considering the evidence of manipulation and unauthorized access to your information, we can argue fraud. We could request to remove your name from the contract. Your son and daughter-in-law would become solely responsible. And what happens then? The bank forecloses. They lose any equity. Their credit is severely damaged for years. And mine? If we win, yours remains untouched, as though you were never involved. I looked out the window. Rain streamed down like tears I didn't feel. What do you recommend? I asked quietly. I can't choose for you. But I can tell you this. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right not to carry the weight of someone else's choices, even if they're family. Family. A word I had once carried like a badge, now a chain. I want to proceed, I said. I want my name removed. I want to be free. He nodded. I'll begin the process tomorrow. There's one thing you need to prepare for. What? Your son's reaction. When he learns you're taking legal action, it won't be pleasant. I'm not concerned with being pleasant anymore, I said. I just want my life back. He smiled faintly. Those are the words of someone who finally understands her worth. I walked out of that cafe different from how I arrived. Not lighter, stronger. For the first time, I had something I'd never possessed. Information, power, control. I wasn't a victim of circumstance anymore. I was the architect of my own freedom. The following days were filled with signatures and statements. Mr. Carter worked quickly, thoroughly. Each document revealed another layer of the truth, another piece of evidence that my son had used me intentionally, systematically. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't about need. It was a plan. A week later, Jamal received the legal notice. Mr. Carter had warned me. But nothing prepared me for the storm that followed. My phone exploded. 50 calls in an hour, then messages, dozens of them. You betrayed me. You're destroying my life. How can you do this to your own son? I can't believe you. I wish you weren't my mother. I read every message. Each felt heavy, like a blow aimed straight at my chest. But this time, I didn't break. This time, I didn't believe the words. This time, I had armor made of truth, because I had finally understood something essential. Real love doesn't drain someone until they collapse. It doesn't manipulate. And it certainly doesn't treat a person like a resource to be tapped until empty. What I had with my son wasn't love. It was unhealthy dependence, exploitation wrapped in the disguise of family loyalty. Tiffany wrote as well, but her message felt carefully calculated. Celeste, I know you're upset, but think about the children. If you go through with this, they will grow up believing their grandmother destroyed their home. Is that how you want to be remembered? As the villain? The villain. Fascinating how, in their story, I was suddenly the antagonist. Not them for the lies, not them for the financial manipulation, not them for years of emotional neglect. Me, for finally choosing myself. I responded only once. The children deserve the truth, and when they're older, I will be here to tell them, but you will not be part of that conversation. And then I blocked both numbers, because I had learned something vital. You cannot reason with people who see you as a source of income. The only thing you can do is walk away and build walls high enough that they can no longer reach you, walls with doors that only you control. May arrived with warm sunlight, the kind of gentle warmth that invites you outside, that makes you feel alive again. For the first time in a very long time, I wanted to live. Not merely survive, not just function, live. The legal process moved steadily. Mr. Carter updated me regularly. Each update brought me closer to freedom, and closer to something inevitable, the final confrontation. Jamal, through his lawyer, requested a meeting. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted me to withdraw the case. In exchange for what? Nothing, of course. They simply wanted me to revert to the old version of myself, the Celeste who said yes, who forgave instantly, who opened her wallet to fix every problem. I accepted the meeting. Not for them. For me. Because I needed to look them in the eyes one more time. I needed closure, not the kind others give you, but the kind you give yourself. The meeting. It took place in Mr. Carter's office, neutral ground, professional setting, witnesses present. I arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in my best clothes. Not expensive garments, but mine, bought with money I earned, and that alone made me feel powerful. Jamal and Tiffany walked in together. They looked exhausted, defeated, but also simmering with anger, like people who felt cornered and didn't know how to escape. We sat across from each other at a wide table. Mr. Carter on my right, their attorney, Mr. Sterling, on their left. A perfectly staged Cold War. Mr. Sterling began, voice deep and practiced. Miss Jakes, we are here to find a resolution that benefits everyone, especially the children. There they were again, their favorite shield, their emotional trump card. Mr. Carter interrupted. Before we discuss any resolution, we must address the facts. Your clients accessed my client's confidential financial information without consent. They misrepresented the use of funds. They accumulated debt using income that was not theirs. These are documented facts. Mr. Sterling shifted, visibly uncomfortable. Those are interpretations. My client acted in good faith. He believed he had implicit authorization. There is no such thing as implicit authorization in banking, Mr. Carter replied coolly. Only signed documents, and the documents show misconduct. Tiffany leaned forward. Her voice trembled, not from sadness but from barely controlled frustration. This is absurd. Celeste, you're his mother. Mothers are supposed to help their children, not sue them. I inhaled deeply, slow, steady. Jamal finally spoke, his tone measured, rehearsed. Mama, we made mistakes. I admit that. But this goes too far. You're tearing your own family apart. My family? I repeated, my voice calm but icy. Where was my family on Christmas? Where was my family when you told me I wasn't worthy of being in your home? Where was my family every time you needed money but never time with me? That was a mistake, he insisted. A mistake that cost $36,000 in direct transfers, I said. $8,000 in false car payments, countless emergencies that were never emergencies. I leaned forward. It wasn't a mistake. It was a system, wasn't it? That's not fair, he said, voice rising. You misunderstood. Mr. Carter placed a stack of documents on the table. Bank statements, emails, login records. It's all here. There is no misunderstanding. I watched as Mr. Sterling's face changed. The exact moment he realized his clients had no case, no defense. Tiffany slammed her hand on the table. This is a setup. You brought us here just to embarrass us. No, I said quietly. I brought you here so I could say something I've needed to say for years. The room fell silent. Even the air felt still. I looked at Jamal, the boy I raised, the man I no longer recognized. For 64 years, I lived for other people. First for my parents, then for you. I believed giving everything was love. I believed sacrificing myself made me important. I was wrong. I paused, letting the words sink in. Real love doesn't drain you. It doesn't deceive you. It doesn't use you. What you gave me wasn't love. It was convenience. I was useful. And the moment I stopped being useful, I was shut out. Not even welcomed on Christmas. Jamal lowered his gaze. Tiffany crossed her arms tightly. There were no arguments left, only truth, and truth hurts. I'm moving forward with the legal process, I said. Not out of revenge, but to protect myself, because I finally understand I cannot save you from the consequences of your own choices, and I shouldn't try. Jamal swallowed. And what about us? What are we supposed to do now? Jamal asked. What every adult eventually learns to do, I answered calmly. Handle your own problems without turning other people into your solution. You're going to leave us with nothing, he said. You left yourselves with nothing, I replied. All I did was stop covering the cracks. Tiffany suddenly stood up. Her eyes were glossy, but not from sadness, from anger. You're selfish, she hissed. A bitter old woman. I wish Jamal had never met you. Honestly, I said softly, so do I. Maybe then he would have learned how to stand on his own. They stormed out together, slamming the door behind them, leaving the air heavy with resentment. Mr. Carter waited for the hallway to fall silent before he spoke. You handled that exceptionally well, he said. It wasn't easy, I admitted, but it needed to happen. How do you feel? I considered the question. Like I finally put down a burden that was never mine. Like I finally set boundaries I should have drawn decades ago. It feels like freedom. June arrived with heat, and with it, the legal process came to an end. The judge reviewed the evidence, listened to the arguments, and made a final decision. My name was removed from the mortgage. The debt was assigned entirely to Jamal and Tiffany. My credit was cleared. I was free, legally, financially, emotionally. Mr. Carter called the next morning. Congratulations, Celeste, he said. You won. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival. That afternoon I walked through the same park where I had once seen Jamal sitting alone. But now everything looked different. The trees full and green, children laughing, flowers blooming. Life was moving forward, and for once I felt myself moving with it, not as a shadow, but as a person, a whole person. I sat on a bench, closed my eyes, let the sun warm my face, and I smiled. A real smile. One that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. Ms. Evelyn found me there. We talked, and I realized something important. I wasn't alone. Other women had walked this path. Other mothers had survived being drained, used, discarded, and they had rebuilt themselves. If they could flourish, so could I. September brought unexpected news. Mr. Carter called again. Jamal has filed for personal bankruptcy, he said. He's losing everything. Their house had already been foreclosed. The car had been repossessed. They were living in a small, inexpensive apartment, a life eerily similar to mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. "My son is finally living the life he once mocked," I said quietly. "The life he called a loser's life." "How does that make you feel?" Mr. Carter asked. "I'm not sure," I replied. "It's not satisfaction, and it's not sorrow. It's something in between." He hesitated before speaking again. "I also need you to know this. During the bankruptcy process, Tiffany filed for divorce. When the money disappeared, so did the relationship. She took the children and moved to another state. Jamal is alone now." The word alone lingered in the air. Alone, just like I had been, just like he had left me that Christmas night, except my solitude was chosen. His was a consequence. October arrived with changing leaves. The world was shifting colors, red, orange, gold, everything letting go so it could begin again. I felt that shift within myself too. Old versions of me were fading, making space for someone new. One afternoon, while I sat reading in my apartment, there came a soft knock. Not loud, not demanding, almost hesitant. I checked the peephole. Jamal, alone, no Tiffany, no fire in his eyes, just exhaustion, a kind of quiet collapse. I didn't open the door right away. I simply watched him through the glass, seeing a son who now looked like a stranger. "Mama," he said quietly, "I know you're there. I'm not here for money. I just want to talk. 5 minutes, please." Something in his voice made me pause. I opened the door, but only a few inches, the chain still fastened, the way you open the door to someone you no longer trust. "What do you want?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "I just wanted to tell you something. Something I should have said months ago." He took a shaky breath. "You were right about everything. I acted wrong. I manipulated. I was a terrible son. And I'm sorry." His tears were real this time, painful, humbling, stripped of pretense. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I don't expect things to go back to normal. I just needed you to know that I finally understand." He turned to leave. "Jamal," I called. He stopped, hope flickering on his face. "Thank you for coming," I said. "And thank you for saying that." His shoulders lifted slightly. "So, does that mean—" "No," I interrupted gently. "It doesn't mean we go back. That part of our life is over. But it means I heard you, and maybe, with time and a lot of work, you might rebuild something." "Rebuild with you?" he asked quietly. "No," I said softly. "With yourself." He nodded. "I understand. And Jamal," I added, "one more thing. Make sure the children know I love them. Tell them this wasn't about them. It was about boundaries, respect, dignity." "I'll tell them," he whispered. He left, and I closed the door. This time, without trembling hands, without tears. Something hadn't been fixed. It had ended, and sometimes an ending is enough. November arrived with familiar cold. The kind of cold that reminds you the year is closing, seasons are shifting, and every story eventually finds its final page. I had changed, not in loud ways, but in the quiet ones that matter most. It wasn't a dramatic movie-style transformation. It was something quieter and far more important. I had finally learned to hear my own voice. For decades, it had been buried under everyone else's needs, covered by expectations, guilt, and family pressure. Now it spoke clearly. You matter. Your needs are real. It's okay to say no. One morning, as I sat by the window with my coffee, I watched the season's first snowfall. Soft flakes drifting down, covering everything in white, as if the world itself was offering a reset. As if it whispered, "What happened is over. Today is new." My phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered, because sometimes you have to open the door to what comes next. "Miss Jakes," a young professional voice said. "My name is Andrea. I'm a social worker with Family Services. You're listed as the emergency contact for your grandchildren, Marcus and Kayla." My heart tightened. "Are they okay?" I asked. "They're physically fine, but there's a situation we need to discuss. Could you come to our office tomorrow?" I agreed immediately. Even though I had built boundaries with Jamal and Tiffany, the children were different. They didn't choose any of this. Like me, they had simply been caught in the middle. At the Family Services Center, the next day I walked into a gray building filled with people holding broken pieces of their lives. Andrea met me with kind, tired eyes. "Marcus and Kayla have been living with their mother and maternal grandmother for 3 months," she explained. "But there have been incidents, emotional instability, frequent arguments. Their grandmother has health issues and cannot care for them. Jamal applied for shared custody, but it was denied. He lives in a single-room studio and works double shifts." I swallowed. "So, why call me?" "Because Tiffany mentioned that you could be a temporary caregiver while she stabilizes her situation. 3 months, maybe 6. There it was, exactly what I had feared. Needing me, not out of love, but out of crisis. "And if I say no?" I asked. Andrea sighed. "Then the children would likely enter temporary care, a foster system, possibly separated." Guilt rose inside me, that old familiar weight, but now I recognized it, and I refused to let it control me again. "I need to think," I said. "I need time." "I understand," Andrea replied, "but from every report, you're the only stable adult in their family." Talking to Ms. Evelyn, I left the building trembling, not from fear, but from anger. Once again, I was being positioned as the savior. Once again, my hard-earned stability was expected to become a sacrifice. I called Ms. Evelyn. We met in a cafe. I told her everything. She listened quietly, then asked, "What do you want to do?" Not as a grandmother, not as Jamal's former safety net, as Celeste. "What does Celeste want?" I thought about it. "I want to help the children," I said honestly, "but I refuse to be used again. I refuse to fall into the same pattern." "Then set the terms," she said. "If you choose to do this, do it on your terms. Legal custody, written boundaries, no Tiffany or Jamal living with you, no extra money going to them, only support for the children, supervised visits, therapy, everything in writing, everything clear." I can ask for all that? You can ask for whatever protects you, and if they don't agree, then the answer is no. For the first time in days, my mind felt clear. She was right. I could help without destroying myself. Setting the rules. That night I wrote a list. Firm, non-negotiable boundaries. The next morning I called Andrea and explained everything. She took notes, then said something that surprised me. "These terms are extremely reasonable, Miss Jakes. They're exactly what the children need." 2 weeks later, everything was approved and legally formalized. Marcus and Kayla would stay with me for 6 months under temporary custody. Tiffany and Jamal would have supervised visits every 2 weeks, mandatory family therapy, and I would receive state support. Not a cent of my own money would go to fixing someone else's chaos. The children arrive. The day they arrived was a strange mixture of excitement and fear. Marcus stepped inside first, shy, unsure, scanning my small apartment like it was unfamiliar terrain. "Grandma," he whispered, "can we really stay here?" "Yes, sweetheart, for a while." Then Kayla, only 5, ran straight into my arms. She hugged me and didn't let go. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I felt like something in this story was healing. Not patched, not fixed, but healing. "I missed you so much," Kayla whispered. And in that little hug, warm, small, and honest, something inside me broke and healed at the same time. This wasn't for Jamal, it wasn't for Tiffany, it was for them. 2 children who never asked to be trapped between adults who couldn't manage their own storms. The first days were hard. Marcus had endless questions. Why don't we live with Mom? Why isn't Dad coming? Did we do something wrong? I gave him the truth, the kind of truth a child could carry without breaking. Sometimes adults make mistakes, big ones, and when that happens, everyone needs time to make things right. But none of this is your fault, not even a little. Slowly, we built a rhythm. Breakfast together, school, homework, dinner, bedtime stories, small, ordinary things, but to them, they were anchors, stability they hadn't felt in months. One night, while we were reading, Marcus looked at me with those big, confused eyes. "Grandma, why aren't Mom and Dad like you?" My heart tightened. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "You don't yell. You don't fight. You don't say mean things." "They do that a lot." I took a deep breath. "Some people never learn how to handle their problems in a healthy way," I said softly. "And when they don't know how, they end up hurting others, even the ones they love. They do love you, in their own way, but love isn't always enough if you don't know how to express it without causing harm." Kayla curled up against me. "I love you, Grandma, and you don't hurt me." Those words dissolved something inside me, something I didn't know still needed healing, because they showed me that every boundary I set, every no I finally said, every painful door I closed, all of it led to this moment, where I could give these children not money, not gifts, but peace. A year later, December came again, a full year since that night, since the words that changed everything. This time, I decorated my apartment with things the children made: paper ornaments, drawings, a small tree filled with love instead of expectations. Jamal and Tiffany arrived for their supervised holiday visit. It was awkward, tense, but polite. The children gave them handmade presents. They brought toys and a few uncertain words of affection. When they were leaving, Jamal lingered at the door. "Thank you, Mama," he said quietly, "for doing this, for being what we couldn't be." "I'm not doing this for you," I said gently. "I'm doing it for them." "I know," he whispered. "But still, thank you." He walked away, and I closed the door, not in anger, but in peace, because I had finally found balance. I could love my grandchildren without sacrificing myself. I could help without losing myself. I could be a grandmother without being a victim. That night, after tucking them into bed, I sat by the window. Snow was falling softly, just as it had 1 year earlier. But I wasn't the same woman. I was no longer the person who stood at a door filled with hope, waiting to be let in. I was no longer someone who accepted crumbs and called it love. I was no longer someone who emptied herself to fill others. I was Celeste, just Celeste, with boundaries, dignity, and peace. And as I watched the silent snow fall, I understood something final and powerful. Real revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's rebuilding yourself. It's finding your calm while they face the consequences of their choices. It's living well while they learn the lessons life finally forces on them. Maybe losers are simply the ones who stop paying for everyone else's mistakes. And if that makes me a loser, then I will lose with pride, because I have finally won something more precious than their approval. I won myself. After everything, I learned a simple truth. Peace doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from finally choosing yourself. For years, I believed love meant giving everything. Now I know, love without respect isn't love at all. Sometimes life makes you lose what you thought mattered, so you can discover what actually does. I lost a house. I lost a version of a family I once wanted to believe in. But I found something far better. I found me. To anyone listening who has ever been made to feel not enough, remember this. You are not defined by what others take from you. You are defined by what you choose to keep, your dignity, your clarity, your freedom. If my story touched your heart or made you think, let me know by liking this video. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is there. And if you feel inspired to support this journey, you're welcome to leave a small donation. Thank you for giving me your time and for listening. For more stories like this one, explore the other videos on my channel and subscribe. I've added 2 new stories on the screen. Click one and stay with me a little longer.